What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here, and we're just coming off of the Combine press conferences from Darren Mougey and Aaron Glenn. And I don't think it's the same allure that we had from the introductory press conferences. Obviously, some of that will wear off, but I came away still impressed with Aaron Glenn. And from Darren Mougey's perspective, I think we learned a little bit more about the personality side from him. But it was also really hard to pull a ton out of this because the nature of it just being a 10-15 minute interview, if you will, in addition to it being very hard to hear the questions. But I'll kick it off with Darren Mougey because that's the least takeaways that I had. The biggest item from him was the fact that he clarified to whatever degree he could. There wasn't any ultimatum given to Rodgers. It was simply a review of the current personnel, how the vision was going to be created around Darren Mougey, Aaron Glenn, and the fact that they felt moving on was going to provide the best opportunity to win now, which is clarified a little bit more about what that means with Aaron Glenn. But for Darren Mougey, when I looked at him, when I listened to him and looked at the body language and just based on some of the questions that I could hear, a lot of it was tied around to either Aaron Rodgers or what it looked like when it came to making that decision and how that may impact the short term for them. And what I walked away feeling like is he's more comfortable when it comes to scouting conversations, right? When the questions around how does he feel about the draft comes and, what the positions of strength may be versus, how he's going through evaluations of talent or identifying some of these guys, he perks up and seems a lot more comfortable when it comes to talking about that and talking about the process. Versus when it came to some of those football decisions that were made, like moving on from Aaron Rodgers, he seems a little bit more clammed in and unwilling to really kind of speak to that more so than necessary, right? And I think that is the right mentality to have, but you can kind of tell that he doesn't maybe feel 100% confident in being able to back up, potentially at least stare face down a lot of the media when it comes to that stuff. Switching over to Aaron Glenn, though, thoroughly impressed. This guy will 100% be one of my favorites. I love the more mild and laid back guys, but at the top of my kind of personality hierarchy, if you will, I love people that are just straightforward, blunt, and direct. And you're 100% getting that out of Aaron Glenn. It's not a lot of football politician type speak stuff when it comes to Aaron Glenn. He's just letting you know what it is. And if he can't share his full thought process with you for the sake of football strategy, he's just going to call out the black and white of whatever that potential topic is. Now, he highlighted a couple things. One, the New York Jets are 100% still in win now mode, which I know may sound counterintuitive when moving on from Aaron Rodgers here, but I still fall in the bucket of there's a way to win without him, right? There was so much poured into Aaron Rodgers being this savior type personality and player for the New York Jets that you could easily see how the New York Jets fell into a pitfall when not really having a strongly insulated roster for anybody that can function at the quarterback position, not named Aaron Rodgers. He also highlighted his coaching staff in a number of ways. He plans to lean on Steve Wilkes, right? Obviously, having that previous head coach experience. I would be curious to know and these are some of the questions we just didn't get asked, but I would be curious what he considers to be some areas that he may not be immediately ready for when it comes to being a head coach. And maybe we got a little taste of that when he was mentioning 3 weeks into the job, he still hasn't talked about the X's and O's of football. Still a lot of administrative stuff. I imagine still a lot of putting processes and procedures in place, et cetera, et cetera. He reiterated when it comes to just the acquisition of talent, especially at the quarterback's position, but elsewhere as well, he wants winners. So from a scouting perspective and him having that background, I wonder if that'll be a consistent theme that he brings to Darren Mougey, where they want to look at the win-loss record, or maybe they want to look at some of those individualized stats, like pass rush win rate, for example, or for wide receivers, right? How often are they able to, or how often are they able to extend an open pass to the quarterback, something of that nature, right? So we may be diving into the weeds of the analytics for stuff like that, or we may just be looking at some of these players, quarterback more often than anything else, since the win loss rate is kind of a stat that speaks directly to them. Are you a winner or not, right? We don't want to really have to toss things up in the air. And we talked about the Bill Parcells approach for this. Keeping business in house. This is a huge thing for all of us as Jets fans because it feels like we have a ridiculous amount of leaks. And it's the one thing that I think Aaron Rodgers did a good service for to us by highlighting that every chance he got, that there's still a rat in the building, if you will. But ultimately, whoever's dishing out this insider info, we need to make sure that we are putting a stop to all of that. And so I think with Aaron Glenn specifically, at the helm of things, you can see him being able to get down and to the nitty gritty and really remove whatever some of these weeds are. Players, what are we looking for at a global level? Smart, tough, resilient. The word resilient sticks out to me more than anything else because it could, in one vein, clash with this thought process of you want to find a winner, but also if you get into some of those individualized stats, you could be the most elite player at wide receiver or defensive tackle, linebacker, safety, cornerback, a lot of these positions as we've seen in the past, and yet still you can't heavily influence the outcome of the game because you're not throwing the football ultimately at the end of the day, right? So you don't want to negatively peg them as a player that can't be a huge contributor to your team. And so I look for that to be a really defining characteristic when it comes to looking at these guys in the NFL draft. Um, a consistent theme for him during his press conference as well was the fact that he wants to peel back all of this attention. And I don't know if it's just because it was given to Aaron Rodgers and, you still kind of feel that essence around the building, or if this will be a staple of his tenure here as head coach, where he wants everybody to essentially be on equal footing. And I'm a realist. So you're never really going to get that, especially if you have a highly successful quarterback, and definitely if that occurs with the New York Jets. But it seems like he really wants to take this mind frame away from everything being so quarterback focused and quarterback centralized, and he wants it to be known we have quality players in all of these other spots that are going to be critical to us winning, in addition to the guys we plan on bringing in, which should be high quality players at all of these different positions. And so we don't want to put the quarterback so high on a pedestal that we're willing to, as he called out, disrespect these other players consistently enough. And I absolutely love it. This should keep things in check for the rookie that comes in, as well as any vets that end up taking over the lead. And one of the last things he talked about his coaching staff. Took him a while to get it together in his own words, but he based this around the fact that he wanted guys that not only could perform their job at a high level, he wanted the compatibility. And he called out specifically covering the weak spots, or the blind spots, if you will, in areas that guys may not necessarily excel in. And that's not to say that there's going to be this cross-functional training or anything like that. But when I looked at the hires, for example, of like a Steve Hyden and a Blasco, O-line tight end coach, those guys are kind of flip-flop, right? But you can see that there's a little bit of an overlap. And all of these guys are going to have to work heavily together anyway. So I can see there being a situation where maybe from a technique perspective, this guy says this will work much better, exactly, especially for what we want to do. Or there's maybe a brainstorming where you can get something new out of this creative process where the coaches are coming together. There's group learning, some tribal thought process that's shared, hopefully some new innovation. Maybe we end up creating our own new drills that we feel like will end up working really well. So all in all, I walk away still with a level of hype that I think is warranted for what Aaron Glenn is supposed to mean to this franchise, and hopefully what he can pull out in terms of us getting up there in the win loss column and being able to reach the playoffs and go deep there. So let me know your guys' thoughts. What stood out most to you? And I'll catch you guys again. Peace.